The grand amphitheater of Zephyria Prime fell silent as Princess Nora's voice echoed through the crystalline dome. Her luminescent skin pulsed with frustrated patterns of deep crimson and gold, a display that would have sent most species scrambling for cover. "Is there no one brave enough to marry me?" she demanded, her forearms gesturing dramatically. The assembled delegates from across the galaxy shifted uncomfortably in their biopods and environmental suits. Nora was not just any royal. She was the heir to the Zephyrian Empire, a civilization that had conquered 3 spiral arms through sheer military might and technological superiority. Her people were warriors born, standing 12 feet tall with exoskeletons that could deflect plasma fire and strength that could crush titanium barehanded. More importantly, Nora herself was a legendary general who had never lost a battle. The suitors who had answered the call for her hand represented the greatest houses and species in the known galaxy. There was Prince Vextar of the crystalline hegemony, whose people could manipulate matter at the molecular level. Lord Thronox of the Void Runners, whose species existed partially in subspace. Even the mysterious architects had sent a representative, beings of pure energy who rarely interacted with corporeal life. Yet as Nora's challenge rang out, each delegate found pressing reasons to examine their datapads or study the dome's intricate patterns. From the human section, a single figure stood up. Alexander Martinez was unremarkable by galactic standards. At 6 feet tall, he was dwarfed by most species present. His brown hair was slightly unkempt from the long journey, and his simple diplomatic uniform looked plain next to the ornate regalia surrounding him. He carried no visible weapons, bore no technological enhancements, and represented a species barely 50 years into galactic contact. "I'll marry you," Alexander said simply. The amphitheater erupted. Delegates hissed, chittered, and buzzed in languages spanning thousands of worlds. The crystalline prince's form flickered with what could only be described as shock. Lord Thronox's tentacles writhed in what his species considered nervous laughter. Princess Nora's skin patterns shifted to surprised silver blue. In 300 years of life, no one had ever responded to her challenges so directly. "Human," she said, her voice carrying clearly despite the chaos. "Do you understand what you're agreeing to? I have destroyed fleets with my bare hands. I once punched a hole through a moon during target practice. My temper has sparked 3 interstellar wars." Alexander nodded calmly. "I read your file on the way here. Impressive resume. I am not speaking in metaphor." Nora's skin flashed angry red. "I literally punched through a moon. My marriage customs require that my husband prove his worth by surviving my strength tests. The last candidate was hospitalized for 6 months, and he was a Titan-class combat android." The human delegate from Earth's Corner, Ambassador Chen, was frantically trying to signal Alexander to sit down. The young cultural attaché was clearly acting outside his authority. "Princess," Alexander said, still standing, "may I ask you a question?" Nora's 4 eyes narrowed. "Speak." "In all these strength tests and challenges, has anyone ever asked what you want in a partner?" The silence that followed was profound. For the first time in the long ceremony, Princess Nora's skin patterns went completely neutral, a pale opalescent white that indicated deep thought among her people. What?" Alexander stepped into the central ring, ignoring the horrified gasps from the human delegation. "You're incredibly accomplished. You've built an empire, commanded fleets, conquered worlds, but nobody here is seeing Nora the person. They're all afraid of Nora the warrior princess." "As they should be," she said, but her voice lacked its earlier fire. "Maybe. But I'm wondering, when you're not crushing moons or commanding armies, what do you like to do? What makes you laugh? What are your dreams that have nothing to do with warfare?" Nora's skin began shifting through colors Alexander had never seen before, complex patterns that seemed to tell stories. I write poetry," she said quietly, "about the stars. And I've always wondered what it would be like to have someone who wasn't afraid to disagree with me." "I can work with that," Alexander said with a grin. "I disagree with people professionally. I'm a diplomat. And I'd love to hear your poetry." For the first time in the ceremony, Princess Nora smiled. When a 12-foot warrior with fangs smiled, it should have been terrifying. Instead, Alexander found it rather beautiful. "You still haven't addressed the strength tests," she pointed out. "True. Here's my counter-proposal. Instead of testing whether I can survive your strength, how about we test whether we can work together? Give us a problem that requires both warrior and diplomat to solve." The other delegates were watching this exchange with fascination. This was not how royal courtship typically proceeded. Princess Nora considered for a long moment. Very well, human. But I warn you, I am not easy to live with. Good, Alexander replied. Easy is boring. As the ceremony concluded with the most unusual engagement in galactic history, Ambassador Chen buried his face in his hands. But across the amphitheater, representatives from dozens of species were taking notes. The humans had just demonstrated something remarkable. Sometimes the bravest thing wasn't to fight the strongest opponent, but to see them as a person first. And in the royal gardens later, as Princess Nora recited poetry about distant nebulae while Alexander listened with genuine interest, the galaxy gained its most unexpected power couple. It turned out that humans weren't the strongest or fastest or smartest species in the galaxy, but they might just be the best at something far more valuable, understanding what others needed to hear.